Welcome to anybody who's watching live with us today. It's David at Bearski. We're doing our usual fantasy football Tuesday. Unfortunately, we did miss last week. We apologize. We were a little bit tied up, so we did miss a week. Hopefully, we didn't, ruin your odds, but hopefully, we didn't make them any worse either. I'm joined by Richie and Brandon as usual, and uh, thank you all for coming in, anybody who's watching, and we're gonna kind of get started today with our usual.
Spiel.
Go ahead. How is our league going? We can start with you. How's your league doing so far this year? I know you're in a bunch. How are we doing record-wise and player-wise?
You kind of broke up. Are you talking to me or Brandon?
Oh, yep, that's you, Richie. All you, man.
Cool. Yeah, so I lost 1 out of 4 leagues last week, and I lost 1 out of 4 leagues the previous week. So far, in 12 matches and 12 matchups, I've lost 2 games. So I guess I'm 10-2. So that's the best I've ever started a fantasy season so far in 4 leagues. So I'm pretty happy with that. They're all pretty competitive leagues too. Yeah, no, Jaden Reed is not doing as hot as he looked at the start. I picked really shitty quarterbacks. I was like, Justin Herbert's going to come back and everything, but it turns out he's been playing through a low ankle sprain, and it was re-aggravated on Sunday. So that explains to me why my picking Justin Herbert isn't working out so well. But yeah, no, I'm having a good time so far.
And taking a quarterback on a Jim Harbaugh team, man, it's taking chances. That guy loves to jam the ball down your throat.
Would have been nice on the Bears, huh?
Could have run the ball a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Bruce, thank you for joining us. Brandon, how you doing, man? How many leagues you in anyway? And then how you doing in those?
Just 2, man. I'm doing awful. I'm a guy who holds on hope, but I'm 1-2 in one of them and 0-3 in the other, man. The one that I'm 1-2, my team finally, I've got some really quality pieces. I have Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams, CeeDee Lamb, Caleb Williams I took a chance on, and I do think he's going to start to play well. Jalen Hurts has just been a dud, man. I mean, that's just been killing me, and I like Hurts, but yeah, it's a quality team, man. I mean, like, I think they're going to start to roll. I'm not too concerned about that team. My other team, man, Travis Kelce is killing me, and then my best player is Tyreek Hill, and I mean, we know where that's going, guys. It's about to get really ugly in Miami for anybody who's on your fantasy team.
Yeah. Well, not to brag, 5-1. First week I only lost in my casual league, and then my big money league I'm 3-0. I am outscoring. I'm first ranked scoring with 580 points through 3 weeks. I want to say something crazy like that. I'm outscoring everybody by about 100. So going good, man. I mean, every beginning of the year I start off pretty hot. It usually doesn't stick around, but first and second place is, this close sometimes. But so far so good. Some of my, my proud preseason predictions are coming true, and then some of them are just lucky guesses on guys that you take a guess that they're not going to be dependent on offense or something that's going to happen based on the coaching staff or the quarterback or something like that. I do feel bad for guys like Brandon who get stuck with Tyreek Hill, and that's just like, what are you going to do about that? But that is part of it, right? Guys like Tyreek Hill, not only you got to hope that they continue to produce, then you got to hope that Tua produces and then doesn't die, and then and then you get stuck with them.
There's no, I mean, one of my rules in fantasy, man, is just avoid players with injury history. I don't draft players with injury issues. I really don't. Even if a player is ranked top 5 and I'm picking 8th, I'll avoid that pick. But look, I mean, when the pass catcher on your team loses value because his quarterback gets hurt, there's just no, I mean, it is what it is.
And for us, Brandon, I think one of our big preseason, me and you were lockstep on this, like avoiding Christian McCaffrey. Man,
yep.
I don't know if you guys got him anywhere, but I had the choice to get him, and I avoided him 2 times. So
I was a 3rd pick when I took Tyreek Hill, man, and I told myself if I'm first in any of my leagues, CeeDee Lamb is my pick over both Tyreek Hill and Christian McCaffrey.
I was doing Bijan and CD before I did CMC.
Yep, I love Bijan too. He was up there for me as well, man. Brees Hall was a guy I was a little skeptical of, but yeah, Bijan would have been my next pick for sure.
Very cool. Yeah, boys. I mean, we usually would do a little bit of our what the hell were we thinkings and all that stuff, but since we missed last week, we can't really go and review how our suggestions went. Maybe if we make sure to be consistent and come back next week, we can kind of go back and kind of make fun of ourselves for how badly we suggested things last week.
Well, I
So,
want to apologize to somebody who was in the chat the last episode I did with you guys because I said sit him. I chose the wrong receiver. I knew one player was going to fail on the team, and I said sit Nico Collins against the Bears, but it was Stephon Diggs that didn't get a damn ball. Nico went off, man.
Well, I told Paulie this after we watched the Texans game. We did it on our Bearski show. The plan so far, and I love Tyreek Hill. He loves Tyreek Hill. The plan so far from most teams is attack Tyreek Hill. And so I think moving forward against the Bears, just whoever is the second receiver, Tyreek Stevenson, whoever's the second receiver, that's probably your better fantasy bet moving forward rather than going against anybody who's the top guy. So Stephon kept Jalen busy, and Nico Collins had a huge game. One of those funny things that you don't really pay attention to, for me at least. We were joking about how we didn't know, like, Brandon Cooks. I thought he was in the league for like 10 years already or 30 years or whatever, and he's only like 25. I had no idea Nico Collins was gigantic. He's like 6'4", almost 6'5".
Yeah. Oh, I thought he was 6'2".
No, yeah,
I think he's almost 6'4", almost 6'5", and then I was watching him in real time. I was like, this guy's massive.
And I'm going to say this, man. He's the best receiver on that football team. He's better than Stephon Diggs, and he might end up being a top 5 receiver in the NFL. He's just tearing people to shreds. I mean, he didn't play well in that Vikings game, but Stroud couldn't really get him the ball. So
I'm blown away at how legitimately good the Vikings are.
Yeah.
Yeah, who could see Sam Darnold leading the league in touchdowns this year so far?
Well, and it didn't. We had a big show about it, guys, when we predicted divisions, and I had the Vikings finish. I said with at least 7 wins, and the panel I was with got real kind of chatty and like, why the hell would you make that prediction? And I said, like, there's certain coaches and schemes where your quarterback is just going to be placed in the most comfortable situation, and you're not going to ask him to do things he can't, and you're going to make sure he's often doing things that he's good at. And another thing about Sam Darnold, Kevin O'Connell is that coach. He's going to put you in the best situation possible. But another thing about Darnold is the one thing he had since he's been drafted is a monster arm, man. The guy threw the pass to Jefferson 2 weeks ago against the Niners was 70 yards in the air from hand to catch. Like, that guy's got a monster arm, and Justin Jefferson's a good player to have on the other end of that. But they're also just one of the best defenses in football, man.
Crimson, I wish the Bears had too. O-line investment is quite important, and now we're paying the price. One more thing, and this is my theory going back to when Tom Brady retired, because I had the year before predicted Tampa to do really, really well. And nobody really understood why, and I was talking to Paulie about it, and he was like, well, they lost Tom Brady. How are they going to do? And I think this is my theory going forward, and I don't know why I didn't catch on to it even with the Vikings. I probably should have. I think when you have an older quarterback with a good coach, even if they're a legend or they're a consistent player, you can assume the drop-off will not be that significant or potentially an upgrade. So when I said that, hey, Tom Brady in his year 40, 41 season, 42, whenever the hell he retired anymore, I was like, I don't think Baker Mayfield is that big of a drop-off from 42-year-old Tom Brady. And I was, he was kind of like, you're crazy. It's Tom Brady. I'm like, yeah, but, I don't use Madden ratings as like an actual conversation piece. But if Tom Brady in his year 40 is a 85 out of 100, Baker Mayfield's an 82, it's not that big of a drop-off, And then the same thing with Sam Darnold and Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins 38 on a bad Achilles, and Sam Darnold being younger than Joe Burrow, fun fact. Heard that all week. Do you guys know that? Fun fact? Yeah, bro, Sam Darnold's still younger than Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. Fun one.
Yeah. And
but that's not that big of a drop off with Minnesota, so I think that's kind of what we're looking at here.
No, when it comes to the whole Tom Baker Mayfield too, man, is like with the weapons between Godwin and Mike Evans, if you have any mobility as a quarterback on that team and you can extend a play by just a second or two, you got two monster weapons in terms of size and the ability to get open. So like if you give those guys an extra second or two to improvise around the corners, that they're gonna get the ball, man. Baker's in a really good situation, like you said, Dave. He's surrounded by talent. I do think Baker is he took a long time, man, but he is kind of starting to fit the mold of the guy we expect him to be.
Yeah, for sure.
In Sam Darnold's case, he also has a decent amount of mobility too to go that big arm, and it's not like he ever lost that. Like you could see him exercising it when he was running for his life and on the Jets, you know. And so, yeah, I was always hopeful that he could pull it out. I always knew that he was on like kind of bad teams before on all of his other opportunities, and I never like really counted him out. When he was the last option standing in Minnesota, I was like, they still have a chance, you know, like they could still be good. I don't think we've seen his best ball yet, you know. So,
and here's a testament to that team, man. Just what I was saying with Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator, and Kevin O'Connell running that offense and the pieces. I mean, besides the Bears, if you're a quarterback getting drafted, the Vikings was the team you wanted to go to. You have Jefferson, you have Addison, they signed Aaron Jones, they have Hawkinson coming back. But if JJ McCarthy had been starting for that team, I don't think the results are crazy different right now. They're probably still 2-1 or something because they're just a good football team top to bottom. Their roster's really good and they're really well coached, man.
I'll tell you what result is different. I think the conversations just in general on the media would be fucking unbearable because talking about JJ McCarthy as the best quarterback
we hear
in
about
football
it every day.
want me to scratch my goddamn ears off.
I got to filter out like 70% of Twitter comments, just talking shit that I know isn't true about the Bears and stuff. I'm just like, this is stupid.
After the game Jaden Daniels had last night, you knew you were going to start doing that.
Oh, Christ. Yeah. I mean, you can just let's not get into all that. I think because I can't really review any of these guys or even critique until we see a little bit more. It's you know, everybody's 1-2 or 2-1 basically in the NFL, and it just doesn't matter until about week 7 or week 8. This I heard a comment, and we're really ignoring the fantasy loopholes right here, but like 2 comments to make. I think one of the worst things that happened to the NFL is the 2011 CBA, the collective bargaining agreement, and just limiting the amount of practices, the amount of off-season potential things that you could do, even limiting players from getting together. You know, I remember watching NFL Network just every day. It was the channel that was always on my TV in my bedroom, you know, in high school, and just like seeing stories about Carson Palmer and Chad Johnson and TJ Houshmandzadeh just hanging out and asking Marvin Harrison and Peyton Manning, like, what do they do to build a chemistry and this and that? And these guys would just work their asses off in the offseason. I just don't think that's where we're at. And then now this NFL, this NFL is just drunk, and it's, you know, stumbling its way through 6 weeks, and it's just this extended preseason, and everybody's so hyped. And I get it. Players are tired and whatever, and it's all good. But it's the same argument with basketball. These guys were like chain smoking cigarettes and drinking 6-packs on the plane or on the, you know, drive on the way to the game, and they were making it. These guys have hyperbaric chambers and dietitians, and they can't play like, you know, 17 games. I get it, but I don't get it. But at this point, I think the 2011 collective bargaining agreement is one of the worst things to happen to the fan perspective of football and the quality of the product on the field. And I'm honestly, I was the most excited about this football season I think I've been in a very long time. And 3 weeks in, I'm already kind of like, if this was like a Netflix show, I'd be like fast forwarding to like week 8 because none of this shit matters right now. I gain nothing from watching week to week. Every game is just an absolute, you know, I stopped making bets because I'm just like, this is all ass backwards. Like, this is all just nonsense. Every game is an upset. I was looking at the 10 game slate last Sunday, and 9 out of 10 were against the favorites. I'm just like, this is just like 3 or 4 upsets a week is fun. 9 out of 10 is just kind of stupid. Not that I don't like competitive football, and you know, parity is king in NFL, but that's my little rant. And then secondly, before we move on to fantasy, and feel free to join in and make your comments on any of the things I said, guys, but holy fucking shit. How you even hire a coach for as a Chicago Bears fan. First, I don't know if Ryan Poles can identify a good coach. He hasn't proven. I don't think he's proven the ability to identify good front office personnel or coaching personnel. So if we hire a new hire, if we get Clint Kubiak as head coach, if we get Ben Johnson as head coach, if we hire some college guy as head coach, I have no confidence in that working out until I actually see it follow through. I forget the Tampa Bay head offensive coordinator that went to the Panthers, and after 1 week of starting, Dave Canales, and just 1 week of watching Andy Dalton, I'm like, yep, that guy just was hamstrung. Like, he is a good head coach. I have no faith.
I love that hire for Carolina, man.
I didn't know anything about it, and I thought it was a little bit of a guy looking for his first head coaching opportunity. That's a subject for a different day. I didn't know enough to give you a yes or a no on that, Brandon. I'll take your word for it. But I have no idea unless, and I've said this before, and it's my pie in the sky. It's my fingers crossed. If San Francisco keeps going on this decline and it's 1-2 and the ownership in San Francisco gets fed up, if the McCaskies don't write a blank check to Kyle Shanahan and give him full front office personnel control along with Ryan Poles, I give up.
Yeah, and another guy that should be in the conversation, man, is Bobby Slowick from the Texans, the offensive coordinator. That's a guy I thought they should have interviewed when they were extending Eberflus. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, you missed on the three. You interviewed 3 guys twice for this job, and 1 guy that you didn't even give an interview to, and it all heads back to I forget the general manager of the Colts at the moment.
Irsay.
I'm sorry.
No, not Irsay.
Not Jim Irsay's the owner. It's
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I'm looking it up.
Yeah,
Chris Ballard.
From
Chris Ballard. But Chris Ballard, it's all the typical shit of the McCaskies, where it's just they need a guy who's a yes man and a friendly guy to just kiss their asses and never challenge them. And anybody who ever walks in that building and challenges them, like a Jim Harbaugh, they're not even going to give an interview, because it's just, you can't be that. That's not the McCaskey way. We don't believe in cheerleaders or swear words or arguments, really, or conflict, or any type of calling each other out. No accountability in this building. And so whoever the hell the next coach is, and I don't trust that it's going to be anybody with a pair of nuts, essentially. Just a completely neutered head coach is the next opportunity. I have no faith in Caleb Williams moving forward.
I will say this, man. I read an article. I'll find it for you, David, and send it to you. From what I read, Ryan Poles was pretty handcuffed on that coaching hire. I don't think Matt Eberflus was his guy. I think he was basically told who to hire.
And I've argued that with Paulie, and Paulie argues it back that it was essentially Poles' move. It was a strong suggestion by the McCaskies, essentially, but everything the McCaskies do is just fucking ass backwards, and they hire coaches before they hire GMs, and they get a new head coach before they draft the quarterback, and then they draft the quarterback in a lame duck year. This is a worse lame duck year than the Matt Nagy lame duck year. This is significantly worse, because there is zero improvement possibility. We're 3 games in. There's no schematic improvement. Everybody hired on Shane Waldron's offensive staff is a Shane Waldron guy. You fire Shane Waldron, you're just promoting a lemming. You can't fire Matt Eberflus. Eric Washington is not head coaching material, and you can't promote Shane Waldron, because Eric Washington isn't even calling plays. He was such a placeholder defensive coordinator by name and title only, to essentially assist Matt Eberflus with game planning and schematics so that Eberflus can still call defense. Matt Eberflus, the only hope for him is to take a demotion, and that's just never happened in the NFL. But I would be so happy with that. It'll never happen. It's never happened in the NFL, but it would be the ideal situation, because now, yet again, you hire, let's say it's Kyle Shanahan. Let's just say it. Let's just throw that into the air and hope it fucking comes true. Whoever the hell you're interviewing as a defensive coordinator under Kyle Shanahan, now you're hamstringing your typical talent pool, because now you're saying, look, this defense is ready to go. It's built good to go. So we need to run a coach that's either base 4-3 or a nickel type of 4-down lineman defensive coordinator. You have to work with what you've got. We have guys signed under contract under this system and these schemes. We can't be changing it because it works. And now you're hamstringing the defensive coordinator because your defensive head coach is actually doing a decent job other than the head coaching aspect. He's a defensive coordinator. That's all he is. But it's just a talent mismatch. It's an absolute catastrophe. It's the worst lame duck year. You can't convince me. And until I see it, Ryan Bates is not the savior of this offensive line. The problems are so much deeper. It's unbelievable. There's no potential of saving this midseason. And if I'm proven wrong, I'm proven wrong. And I would love that. Nothing more than to be proven wrong. But this is the worst lame duck year I've seen maybe in my Bears fandom history. Definitely worse than the Nagy one. Because at least with the Nagy one, there was some shit there that you could kind of gather into the next coaching staff and kind of pick up. This is a catastrophe reboot, set you 2 steps forward, 1 step forward, 2 steps back bullshit season. And I'm already over it. But anyway. Fantasy football?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I would just want to posit that on the field, the worst problem is the offensive line, right?
No, it's play calling.
On the field, strictly on the field. Okay, and play calling.
Position.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're talking about the pure talent or lack thereof, yeah, it's out. It's offensive line.
Because what a lot of players have been saying, like on the Bears, and like a lot of observations that I've seen is like it does come down to like pre-snap calls for the offensive line assignments, that they're not getting those right. And they kind of gave the reins to Caleb Williams to do that immediately. And it's something that they haven't really done with their previous quarterbacks like Justin Fields. And so that's what I
could do it.
What's that?
I don't think Fields could do it.
Right. And so if it does just come down to the pre-snap offensive line assignments, then I hold out a little bit of hope. As far as play calling is concerned, yeah, that play calling, the run scheme just isn't working. It's that's an entire part of the offense that we're supposed to be relying on. We picked up DeAndre Swift. We invested money into him, and we can't even block for him. He has like half a yard before contact per carry. If you look at his
I am supremely confident, in the 95th percentile confident, that with any other offensive coordinator, this offensive line would not look anywhere near this bad. I think the amount of attention to detail executed on the field right now, and it comes down to coaching. Guys, we don't need to beat a dead horse about the speed option on 4th and 1 to the short side of the field. Right. In the moment, as casual fans, we watch that saying, this is the worst play call I've ever seen. It's an ESPN, everyone's making fun of you play call for weeks, if not months.
Well, the option was ran after Wildcat. I mean,
yeah, and we're talking about is not only the detail of the simple detail of removing the ball from the goal line, pushing it 6 yards back, taking a player who's not that speedy. And then I remember I listened to everybody's comments post game. Caleb Williams saying, they don't collapse. They didn't collapse like we expected them to. How many? You have nothing to base that off of. There is no fucking speed option being called against the Colts where you could find some sort of collapse. It's not apples to apples. You're comparing apples to oranges. That if you wanted to, and I said this to my friend who's the former offensive lineman in college, all that stuff. Like, if you really were adamant about going to the outside, do a fucking fake fullback handoff pitch to the outside. You want to draw some collapse in here? Play some goddamn collapse. Throw a ball, dude. We could talk about. But guys, and then the point I'm trying to make here is, imagine how much time was spent during a week of install.
Well, and man, you got to think this. Like,
if you have 10 hours a week of install and you're wasting an hour of it on goal line formations, and one of that is a speed option in your back pocket, I mean, we're talking about some fucking Bush League, high school level fucking coaching. And that's just the fundamental aspect of it. That's like being generous of assuming your high level thought process of goal line packages and all that shit. And Shane Waldron is being bullied by fans into running his offense better. He got bullied into giving Cole Kmet more playing time. And we're all correct more than he is.
Yeah, and Pryor is better than Davis. And
how do we know he was bullied into that? I'm sorry. Like, what are we basing it?
because he
Well,
has full control of the
You
offense.
got to think about this too.
Yeah.
A friend of mine said this to
Did
me.
he not? Gerald Everett had 67% of the snaps during preseason. He was confident in putting Gerald Everett out there.
Yeah,
He got bullied into this.
no bearing for that. But that wildcat play, man. So when you're going to run a wildcat to Khalil Herbert of all the backs on your team on the goal line with inches to go, I mean, because to me, Roshan Johnson's the player on the field there. But when you're running a wildcat with inches to go on the goal line, I mean, both teams know what's happening. The offense knows what's happening. The defense knows what's happening before that ball is snapped. They're going to load the box. They're going to load up the center. So you have to know when you're calling that play, you just have to be bigger and stronger than the guys in front of you. You got to get pushed. That's the only result of that play is you push and you get a few yards. The running back gets in the end zone, and they just got bullied on the line, man. And it's like, know your personnel. Your interior offensive line isn't getting any push on anybody so far this year. Why are you running a play where you're letting the defense know exactly where the ball is going? And then the play action thing, man. Caleb is 4 for 5 with 63 yards and a touchdown on 4th down. Throw the damn ball. Like scheme. You don't even have to be cute, man. A little bit play action, get a tight end.
Fuck your Wildcat, and Coleman Shelton's an absolute travesty. I mean, it's fine. I feel bad for the guy. He's put into a role that he shouldn't have been put in anyway. He should have been an emergency backup center at that point. I get it. But quarterback sneak, cut block, Coleman, fall down. Give him an angle to just go like this. Like literally, dude.
Did you guys
fall
know
down.
that did you guys know this? The offensive line coach is also the run game coordinator, so maybe that's
he got a promotion this
Chris
offseason.
Morgan. Yeah, that's a guy that the Bears need to start looking at under a very fine microscope, man. Because those are the two worst things on this team. He is literally in charge of the two worst things on this football team: running the damn ball and offensive line. Like that guy's got to go.
So when I was first, we should get back to fantasy football, but just real quick, when I was first watching the game, I was only listening to it, and then I heard, it was an outside run on that 4th down, and I was like, oh man, it sounds like someone was trying to be the smartest guy in the entire stadium and run that. And then when I saw it, later that night, I watched it and I was like, man, if I was watching this live, I would have puked. Like that would have sucked so bad.
I was livid when I saw both players start. Man, when you see an option, you're inches away from a goal line, and both players start heading backwards.
It was such a slow motion in your brain moment that I saw DeAndre Swift backpedaling, and I was like, oh, okay, at least this is some weird fucking speed option pass.
Yeah.
Because he started retreating backwards, and I was like, at least that's clever. At least that's some weird shit that you could fucking excuse. Because not only that, like, if you trust your defense that much, dude, leave the defense on the 1.
That's
on the 1 inch line.
I was gonna say you
gave it to him on the fucking 12.
Yeah, you're only confident in calling that 4th down play because you're like, we're gonna have Anthony Richardson in his own end zone when our defense, the better unit, comes back on the field and they get the ball at almost the 13-yard line, and that just, man.
Gentlemen,
and you want to talk about the the lack of identity and all that bullshit. If you want to fucking have an identity, just play the identity do everything to support the defense. Play field position shit.
Run the ball down.
2-3 third downs.
Smack you in the face football, man. That's what.
All right, boys.
And he needs to tell Waldron, man, this is the team where they hit you in the mouth team. That's what we're gonna be.
All right, guys, let's go through these comments because we got a lot of people participating and actually listening to us rant and sitting here for a fantasy football show. So good old lines don't hurt older QBs either to go with a decent coaching scheme. I agree with you, Bruja, but there's no saving it here. There's no saving it here, unfortunately, this season. There's no guy coming through the middle of the football NFL season. You can't trade for a second round pick for a decent lineman and have them gel quickly enough. It's just not going to happen.
I'm not. You know what, man? I'm not. I do think things are gonna look better. I do believe that. I don't know that the Bears come out where people projected them at 10-7 with the playoff appearance, but I do think things start to look a little better.
I had them in the 7-9 range, and I'm leaning more towards 7. I still think it's a 7-win team, but that's not progress in any way, shape, or form.
No, that's getting your coach fired. That's getting your coach fired.
Thank God. I mean, if he, God forbid, if he lame duck limps his way into a playoff berth and then gets bounced in the first round and you keep him, fucking kill me now. So yeah, we got, hey, need help. Was just offered ETN For Pollard and Odunze, other receivers are Rice, Neighbors, Collins, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, looking to upgrade running back 2 and Hall as a run. And all I have is Hall as running back 1. So do not take Travis Etienne by no means. And if you have to give up Pollard and Odunze, you're giving up 2 better players for Etienne. Etienne is on a decline. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to be an absolute
They're the worst team in
turning into
football.
the skid. They're going to turn into the skid team. You think they started bad? They're going to absolutely give up on this season very, very quickly.
I'm calling this
And-
now. He gets Doug Peterson is fired in the next 2 weeks. That's happening.
Yeah, and I forget their rookie backup running back, but he might take that job from Etienne by week 6.
Wow. Damn. So Jaguars started 0-3. Is that what I'm seeing? Is that
Yeah,
what
keep
Okay.
Pollard and keep Odunze. Odunze is
And
going to have a very
so-
good second half of
And
the
they
season.
started 9-3 last year and missed the playoffs, guys.
Yeah.
I mean,
and understand that
this collapse started last season. And
there's
it
no hope for
started up-
ETN improving. There's only going to be more backfield sharing and splitting for ETN as the season goes on. Whereas Pollard, you can always depend on him getting carries because as Will Levis, and then their backup is it Duck Hodges, I think it is, or it's Mason Rudolph, one of those old Pittsburgh guys that, came in for garbage time when somebody was hurt. It's Mason Rudolph. So no matter who's in Tennessee, they're going to have an identity of running the ball, playing defense. So you're better off keeping Pollard as like your running back 2 / your running back 3 on your flex spot. Odunze is going to be, I think, wide receiver 1 by the end of the year, especially if Keenan Allen stays hurt. DJ Moore is still going to be, solid, but Odunze is probably going to be the second target. Him and Kmet, hope to God. We could talk about Kmet all day. I love that fucking dude. And what I saw from him and Caleb having a great hookup is awesome. But yeah, you're set. Ignore that trade instantly. Decline. Do not go for ETN. He is not going to help your team.
Wow, I was gonna say something totally different.
There's some really quality
so
receivers too, man. Good.
so Pollard and Odunze. Yeah, they are pretty good. Pollard and Odunze, they are upside players. This guy is trying to play you. He thinks that the upside of Pollard and Odunze are going to outweigh ETN. So you should. David sounds really freaking convincing there. I would want to keep Odunze because he's only looked good. I mean, he's looked like a rookie. He's produced like a rookie in the first 2 games. I think last game was the sign of things to come because he was using his body to separate at the catch point. He's kind of coming into his own. I don't think ETN is as bad as David says because when I watch his highlights, he doesn't have that many carries leached from him yet. Maybe David sees something coming down the pike that's going to happen where his carries are going to be split. And when ETN's gotten the ball, he's actually produced yardage. He hasn't gotten any touchdowns. So, if I agree with holding on to Pollard and Odunze because this guy's angle is he's trying to pull those guys off of you because he thinks we're going to have higher upside. But
David's right though, man. The stuff that doesn't show up on box scores is what you got to concern yourself with here. That Jacksonville team has completely quit on their head coach. They don't buy it. They're not buying into that system.
And it's the same. It's a very similar situation as it is in Chicago because I forget the name of the offensive coordinator in Jacksonville, but it's one of Doug Peterson's best, closest confidants through his career, and he is an absolute catastrophe. He's a joke. He won't pull play calling duties from him, so there is no upgrade there. If Doug Peterson's fired and you promote that guy, you're promoting an even dumber person in charge.
The defensive, I forget his name. I think the defensive coordinator would actually be the intermittent coach.
I would agree with you, but that still remains with the offensive coordinator who's still taking over play calling duties. So the system doesn't change from Doug Peterson to a new guy or improve. You're still maintaining the same offensive coordinator. There is no midseason change where ETN is like, you know what, you're right. I got fired, or my offensive coordinator got hired. Unless they promote like the quarterback's coach, and he's just like, what have we been doing? Here's our identity: ETN. Which that is the only logical way that Richie would be corrected in terms of like ETN having a better second half of the season. We're also talking about 2 guys that Odunze started off hurt. Now he's getting healthy. Pollard started off last year kind of on the downturn. Now he's getting healthy. ETN is an injury-prone guy with a lack of touchdown production, and he's going to get more and more carries leached from a younger legged running back as the season goes on with the same offensive coordinator.
And ETN is the worst goal line rusher in the NFL. I had ETN on my team last year. Do you guys know he had 12 rushes with inside the 1 yard line and scored on 6 of them?
6? Jesus.
50% inside the 1. That's egregious.
Yeah, I think you're better off because if your running back is Breece Hall, you can chug away with Tony Pollard until somebody in terms of your league gets hurt. I mean, I'm picking up Roschon Johnson this week, and he's probably free in your league as well. That's a probably better stash away player.
Or
just
Bucky Irving. Rashad White.
Get Bucky Irving. Yeah. One of those guys that's like a stash away, kind of like take the backup of a guy that you think is not necessarily super healthy. I took Zach Charbonnet in the last round of my draft this year because I just didn't believe that Kenneth Walker is going to be healthy. And now I have a keeper in the 15th round, which is probably going to be Seattle's starting running back next year. So that's kind of the long-term planning you have to do to kind of maintain these fantasy seasons, because you can't just live and die by week 1, week 2, week 3. Even if ETN's producing, I would still be pretty comfortable with like like you're looking at a team like Cincinnati. They're not just going to stop playing football. They're going to be 0-3 and they're going to stop playing. But, if they're down every game, you're not going to see a lot of carries. So take like a good team that likes to run the ball and take their backup, because if they're up on teams early, they're up on games early, and they need to run the ball, whoever the first guy out, boom. Justice Hill, like we talked about in week 2 on Baltimore, probably was an amazing free agent waiver wire pickup for your team. I think Ty Hill and Najee Harris in Pittsburgh, right? Or TJ Warren, that's probably one of those guys that they're probably both taken, but find a good 2-0, 3-0 team. I have James Cook. I don't want him to get hurt. Take James Cook's backup. I don't even know who he is.
Mike Davis.
But when
Mike
Davis, but when
drafted this year.
Go get Mike Davis. If and when James Cook goes down for 2-3 weeks because he's a bell cow back, Mike Davis is gonna get a shitload of points for you, dude.
And he's a good player.
And he's a good player. Do something like that rather than getting screwed over and reaching for a trade when you don't necessarily need to. It's a long season. Play it smart and then just put receivers in your flex position and just limp your way through on the running back position until you get there. So, yeah, here we go. Crimson, you dig. Doesn't improve soon. Kevin Warren doesn't strike me as the patient type. I don't think Kevin Warren is nearly as involved in the football operations as we'd like to think he is. I think he was hired for one reason he was hired for one reason only. It was like when he built Minneapolis Target Field, and when he built, managed the Big Ten and built a bunch of stadiums there. He's not there for any type of control. I think I genuinely mean this, and I'm not being facetious. I think Virginia McCaskey has more input in a meeting room and hiring and firing than Kevin Warren. They wheel her ass in and she just like points and says, that guy. It just happens. It's what it is. This is a mom and pop shop franchise. It's fucking embarrassing. I don't know if Flus is a good DC. Too often I see defensive playmakers in the sideline on important third downs. That's to be debated, but I mean, results do speak for themselves, and this is a top 5 defense for sure in the league. And I think if the offense was any better, I mean, you can't get much worse. If this offense could keep them off the field a little bit more, this would be a top 3 defense. So I think that we're standing on that. Traded AJ Brown for Jacobs and Ayuk. I need to win now. I mean, everybody needs to win now, dude, but it's a long season. Not know how long AJ will be out. Valid trade. Traded AJ Brown for Jacobs and Ayuk.
It's a good trade.
AJ Brown and Ayuk are almost a wash. You're probably getting 80% of AJ Brown's production with Brandon Ayuk. And if you can have Josh Jacobs, who's a legitimate top 5 back, especially until Jordan Love comes back. Even when he comes back, they're probably still going to run the shit out of the ball. You got 2 top 10 positions.
You took the only Niners player that's not often injured.
I would have kept AJ Brown personally, just because Jacobs. Well, I don't. He's not going to do good this week, in my opinion. Just for this week, the Packers found a way to score without Jacobs last week, and I think I'm not saying he's going to have a bad season. I'm not saying Ayuk's going to have a bad season, but I hope it pans out for you. I'm not saying I can predict the future. All right. And those are good players, Jacobs and Ayuk, but I just would have kept AJ Brown because he can just pile up 25 points or 30 points like on any given week when he's healthy.
Don't hold on. Don't be benching Jacobs. They're about to play the
I'm not saying.
Vikings.
Well,
The
I was going to
Vikings
sit him
were
for the
just
week.
the Vikings just allowed the Niners running back 2 weeks ago to 110 yards on 20 rushes, I think.
I think a
So-
It's on 20
big
rushes,
factor, a big factor of Josh Jacobs having an underperforming game this week was because of how much they dominated the Colts with the running game. I think Tennessee said, you know what, we're going to make Malik Willis beat us. And he kind of did. And all of their off plays were completely just using Josh Jacobs as a distraction. And you're getting easy little dump off plays from Malik Willis. Malik Willis had no chance of performing well in that game without Josh Jacobs
And no
having
matter-
done really well the week before.
And no
So
matter what
now
the
that it's
Titans-
1 week of each, I think you're going to see a little bit more of a balanced attack, and Green Bay just going like, what do we do well? Josh Jacobs. I don't think you're going to depend on Malik Willis to carry you through this just Josh Jacobs as a distraction. You're going to have to use him legitimately.
I was like 4 to 6 week injury when it was released. I think they're like pretty damn sure Jordan Love's can be back pretty damn soon.
I think he was practicing this week. He's probably
Okay.
going to be back within a week or two. So, trade Singletary. Stevenson and Garrett Wilson for Diggs, Kenneth Walker, and Aaron Jones. I don't know who Stevenson is.
Ramondre Stevenson.
Devondre, yeah. The
Yeah.
Patriots
Devondre.
running back.
Oh.
Starting
He had a
running back.
decent season last season, and so people
Well,
were
Kenneth-
a little high on him. But
I don't know how long Kenneth Walker's out, but I would say you're only upgrading at one position there, and that's barely because Aaron Jones is a slight upgrade over Singletary. But I think Stevenson and Aaron Jones would probably be a wash based on the whole thing of the season. The thing with certain teams that are bad, like the Patriots, yeah, you don't assume that a lot of their players are going to perform well in fantasy, but they have to still play football, and someone's getting the ball consistently. And if there's one player this is how I kind of do my drafting and my trading and all that stuff. If I'm taking somebody on a bad team, it's the one player, not the best player, but the guy who's going to get the touches. So a guy like Ramondre Stevenson, he's going to get 22 carries. You're not going to depend on Jacoby Brissett or Drake May to have like 30, 40, 50 throws. You're not Shane Waldron over here. You're not putting 56 throws on a rookie. Patriots are an actually competent franchise. You're going to play defense and run the ball. So
You're getting substantially. I think you're getting substantially better at running back, but you're getting substantially worse at wide receiver. So who else do you have at wide receiver? Garrett Wilson is a much better player than Stephon Diggs, and he's in a much better system. And I also Aaron Jones, though, I'm gonna say this, man. Aaron Jones to me so far this year looks like the best receiving back in football this year. He is definitely kind of killing it in the past. I think he's had over 5 catches in his last 2 games. So
yeah, that scheme is working out perfectly. I would
personally, I would take Diggs, Walker, and Jones, like just because
you're
they
getting
can
better at
produce
running
that.
back without a doubt. You're
getting
getting
better
running.
long
Aaron Jones
term.
and Kenneth Walker are better than Singletary and Stevenson. So you're getting better at running back. So if that's what you need, man, if you need running backs, and it looks like you do,
Yeah.
if Singletary and Stevenson are your starters, I'm probably making that trade. I'm probably going to let Wilson go if I've got some quality players. If I've got a 2 and 3 receiver I trust, and you're adding Stephon Diggs, you're getting substantially better at the running back position.
I agree. I think you nailed it on the head there, Brandon. You summarized that perfectly. And then Baker, Demond, CD, or Kyler, Jacobs, and Garrett Wilson. Baker.
Is this
Demond,
a trade?
I'm assuming
You want the first
Baker,
half.
David
Not those first.
Montgomery, and CD, or Kyler, Josh Jacobs, and Garrett Wilson. I think the second one is probably the better trio, period, because David Montgomery is just, I don't know, man. With that Lions team, there's already and what we said, Brandon, about it, there's just too many mouths to feed to be consistent in fantasy football. And just you never know who on Detroit's going to have a good week or a bad week. CD is just going to absolutely dominate every week. Baker is pretty solid. But I think with Kyler, Josh Jacobs, and Garrett Wilson, you're basically taking the first option of 3 separate teams rather than Baker, who may be good at 1 week. CD's an absolute monster, and David Montgomery, who might
CD Lamb, man. I don't like trading CD. I don't like trading. If you're a team that took a player in the top 3 picks, man, that's just a guy you kind of leave off your trading block.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with
I,
that too.
I think
That's a tougher one, but I like the trio on the second side better because I could see Garrett Wilson having a good year.
So I think the strongest part of the second side is Kyler Murray. But Montgomery and Gibbs, they both produced last year, and so far this year they've both been producing. I like Montgomery in this trade and CD, and Baker's just he's still doing good. So I respectfully disagree. I like that just CD by itself enough. That's enough of an argument.
I like the trio with CD Lamb on it just because CD's. There's going to be a point this season, guys, where this guy's getting you 30 points a week.
You guys are probably right. I'm letting my dislike for David Montgomery overwhelm the
Baker
like
Mayfield's
for
Baker Mayfield's
Baker
the worst player of this 6 out there. So you got to, I mean, who's your core? Baker, if do you have another quarterback? Because Baker Mayfield, of those 6 players, Baker Mayfield is the guy I trust the least for sure.
Yeah, because Baker's probably in a free agency somewhere in week 1, week 2 anyway, so not a big deal. Pick one for this week: Carr, Willis, Fields, Danny Dimes, Darnold, or Dalton. Why are these all your options?
Willis
this week,
maybe it's a 2 QB league and needs to fill that second slot.
Maybe
you got to go Darnold.
Oh yeah, Darnold by 100. I missed Darnold on there. I was thinking between Fields and Dalton. I missed Darnold. Yeah, Darnold 100%.
Definitely. My power ranking would go Darnold,
Carr, probably.
Fields.
Yes. Dalton.
Carr.
No. Yeah.
Guys, I mean, can we calm down with the fucking Andy Dalton shit?
Yeah, don't touch Willis or Dalton.
Can we calm down on fucking Andy fucking Dalton, please? Can we calm down,
We'll do
please?
process of elimination. Get Malik Willis, Danny Dimes, and Dalton off your list. So you only have to choose between Carr, Fields, and Darnold. I don't trust the Saints. Derek Carr has played well. Fields is not a fantasy guy.
Derek Carr is playing the Falcons, which I don't. Well, they're actually a better defense than
I don't love Fields in fantasy. Fields is a quality football player, it seems, but I don't. Darnold is the guy.
I think you're Darnold
scoring points. You're not going to get a whole lot of fantasy points out of Fields when the Steelers are averaging like 16 points a game.
Right.
So So for those,
I think you're banking on Fields getting a lot of carries, and I believe they're playing Baltimore.
No, they're playing a bad team, man. They're playing. They're playing. They're gonna start 4-0, man. They're gonna start 4-0.
Yeah,
they're playing Indianapolis.
The Colts,
yeah.
Who have allowed?
Yeah, I feel good about that for Fields. Then,
yeah, Fields is a good plug and play, for sure.
For our viewers, the reason why we're saying ignore Dalton is because there's a good chance it was just a flash in the pan. All right, you see it a lot where a backup gets thrust into a playing role, and because there's no tape on him, the defenses kind of don't know what to do exactly quite yet. And Dalton had the luxury of there not being any tape on him, among other things. There's a chance.
They also played the fucking Raiders.
Yeah, the Raiders can't cover anyone, man. They can't cover anyone.
They played the fucking Raiders. I mean,
they have 2 quality edge rushers. They have Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby, and it's doing them no good because the secondary can't cover anybody for even a second. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Pittsburgh against the Colts, probably a good bet there. Darnold against, I think they're playing a decent matchup this week.
The Packers.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to go with Fields here. And you know what? Sue me if I'm wrong, but Fields is probably going to have to, do a little bit of scrambling around here, especially if DeForest Buckner's back. I think that's going to be a goddamn rock fight. It's going to be Pittsburgh, Indiana. Pittsburgh, it's just the fucking Spider-Man meme so hard. It's going to be fucking awesome.
Fields and Richardson, that's going to be a fun game to watch.
Yeah, keep in mind, he said to pick one. It's going to be Darnold, all right? If you need to pick one. And in the next comment, he says, or Caleb Williams. That's what he says in his next comment. You can stash Caleb Williams.
Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I do Caleb. Honestly, I was looking at the Ram. First of all, fellas, we're a 3-point favorite against an absolutely just decimated LA Rams team. And I've never been more confident in taking a mortgage payment and putting it on the fucking Rams. Sean McVay is going to fucking eat Matt Eberflus's lunch so hard. And
Caleb's
just
gonna
like
go off on that secondary though, man. That's the
I
worst
agree. They
secondary
have
in football.
4 sacks in the entire season. They are like 31st in pass defense. That's an
Oh, they're
absolute dog
terrible.
shit secondary. And we're still gonna fucking lose. It's gonna be so sad.
I have
So
hope.
yeah. Nico and Olave for A-Chain and Garrett Wilson. I lost Pacheco and I have James Conner and Arsub. The fuck?
I'm in Ra. I'm in Ra
I'm
St.
on
Brown.
Ross St. Brown.
I've never seen that acronym either. I just
I would make
Good-
that.
good.
I would take a Chain and Wilson over Nico and Olave for sure. Nico's great, but I have again the Saints. I don't have faith
Target
in them.
share, man. Also, target share with Nico is like you're taking a receiver on the Texans with you have no idea who's going to be the number 1 guy that week. Honestly, Chris Olave, it's fine, but I just don't like the Saints are a cool story. I don't know how consistent that's going to be. You're taking
are hurt. Shane is the guy to own right now in fantasy football.
Man. A-Chain with Skylar Thompson and then Garrett Wilson. I think Garrett Wilson is he's the same thing in the opposite end of the spectrum where guys, there's gonna be a 5-week span where Garrett Wilson's looked like the best receiver in the league. It's fucking Aaron Rodgers and no one else.
Rodgers looks good, man.
Rodgers looks fresh. I mean, I think they have like Tyler Conklin and goddamn like
Mike Williams.
The corpse of Mike Williams out there. Garrett Wilson's gonna have a game of like 7 catches and 150 yards at some point. He's gonna win you your fantasy.
Garrett Wilson's gonna finish as a top 5 receiver in fantasy.
Yeah, like Garrett Wilson, 2 weeks of mediocrity is not a thing to be scared of. It's kind of crazy. I think the Garrett Wilson hatred that's what I would love to have of all the Jets. I think Garrett Wilson is still my favorite over even Breece Hall. Breece Hall is having already his carries fucking taken away. So yeah, Garrett Wilson's your best player on the Jets by a country mile at this point. And then should I trade Jaden Reed and Brian Robinson for Drake London? Fuck no.
What? Why is that even a question?
Fuck no. Jaden Reed's already better than Drake
I'm
London.
not trying to hate on you, man. Sometimes you get inside your own head, but you're thinking too hard about that. That's an immediate no.
Shaheed and Moss on my bench. Keep them there.
Jaden Reed
run away from Drake London.
Jaden Reed by himself is a better player than Drake London in fantasy.
Yeah, he needs to. If the trade was like Jaden Reed for Brian Robinson and Drake London, maybe.
Yeah, no,
but
don't,
fuck no.
Don't.
He's asking because Drake London got like 17 points and 18 points the last 2 weeks. So he got like 60 yards, an okay amount of receptions, like three or four points in half PPR and a touchdown in each of the last 2 weeks.
Jaden Reed with Jordan Love is going to be better than Drake London, and Brian Robinson is about to become an absolute bell cow.
Jaden Reed is the best skill player in that offense, without a doubt.
And Brian Robinson's about to get up. Austin Eckler went out with a concussion. So
Jaden Reed's the guy that they're going to. Jaden Reed is a player not like Drake London. Drake London's in a system where he's going to get the ball when he's targeted. Jaden Reed is going to be schemed around getting the ball. They're going to get the ball into Jaden Reed's hands, just like Devon A-Chain. Guys like those, they're Swiss Army knives. These guys get the ball. That the offensive game plan is to give those guys the ball.
Yeah, we're giving way too much attention to this question. No, end of story. Ignore. Done. Hit decline so fast that
send back a middle finger emoji.
Yeah, exactly. And then which side would you rather? Rice and Kamara or Lamb and Monty? Sounds like a fucking good Indian dinner.
Rice and Lamb more than Rice, and I like Kamara more than Monty, so that's a
some lamb and rice with a side of Kamara on Monty. Yeah.
The thing is, Rice is playing pretty good lately, and he has another favorable matchup this week. And Kamara's been good. If you were going to go by what have you done for me lately type of deal, then Rice and Kamara, but just the other side has Lamb, and that makes me want to keep Lamb and Monty personally. Yeah. So,
yeah, you nailed it with the CD Lamb part.
I'm surprised.
We got a lot of questions, which I love.
The Cowboys started slow, but we're seeing a lot of like Lamb and trade offers. Like, who's getting rid of CD Lamb right now?
I think a lot of people are having a fear of the Cowboys collapse the same way we are confident in the Jacksonville collapse, and I don't think. Yeah. Should I trade Jordan Mason for A-Chain, Connor, or Joe Mixon? I'm going to assume Jordan Mason. For A-Chain?
Yes.
Connor? Yeah.
I take A-Chain.
Yeah.
Okay, Jordan Mason.
Are you kidding me? If somebody's giving you Jordan Mason for Devon A-Chain, yeah.
Jordan
Absolutely.
Mason is about when McCaffrey comes back. Like, am I crazy? Like, Jordan Mason's not going to be irrelevant anymore.
I don't know if he's gonna come back anytime soon, but I mean, Joe Mixon's a better option.
Yeah, if you can finish, but
All three of these are a better option, and if somebody's willing to give you Devon Achane for a guy you picked up off the waiver wire, dude,
Take
take
Achane.
it and run.
And when when you're late in the season, man, and you need to win games, and McCaffrey comes back,
Mm-hmm.
I don't love it.
Sorry, Richie. There's no tape on Andy Dalton, man, who's played in the league for 15 years. He's right to make fun of you, but I know what Richie meant with this system and this season. Nobody knew what the fuck Carolina could pull off this year because you don't know what the system's actually supposed to look like. And with Andy Dalton, it was actually functional. But also, let's calm the fuck down on Andy Dalton right now. It's still the Carolina goddamn Panthers, and Adam Thielen went on injured reserve today. Let's calm the fuck down. So, Brandon, you look like that was news to you. Adam Thielen's on injured reserve.
I mean, it is because the Panthers. The guys in fantasy just avoid that. There's two teams in fantasy you should completely avoid right now, and the Panthers is one of them for sure.
Is DJ Moore a good start for this week, non-PPR? I don't know any receiver who's a good start in non-PPR, honestly, because it has to have the fun of receiver predictions. It's like, yeah, he'll probably have 80 yards and a fucking touchdown this year. This season, this week, he's probably pretty due. I think DJ Moore is getting frustrated. I have less than zero. It's a negative number. Confidence in Shane Waldron to adjust and feed players the way they're meant to be fed. If you don't know that DJ Moore needs drag routes and slants and misdirection routes, I can't help you. He's not a jump ball, go ball receiver. He can be when used occasionally in a scheme, but
I'll say this, man. If you drafted DJ Moore to be a week by week decision, is there a better week?
Exactly. Well said. Yeah, if he's your third choice, maybe if you have a better fourth option. I'm loaded at receiver. I could debate on it, but even then, DJ Moore's going from my fourth choice this week to my second, so I highly doubt you have players that you could justify playing over DJ Moore this week.
The league's worst secondary, so I mean,
yeah, I don't think Keenan Allen's coming back, and even if he does, he's going to be probably on a play limit. Rome is not going to back up his 115-yard game with a 150-yard game. It's just not going to happen. They're not building a connection like that in 1 week. The only two players I'd be consistently excited to see this week against the Rams would be Cole Kmet and DJ Moore. Maybe a sprinkle of Rome Odunze. That's about it. So
we got to jump into our stardom situms because we keep talking about players that are on my list.
Yeah, I mean, I can start Flowers, JSN, Brian Thomas, and JMO. Yeah, you didn't name a single player that I would play over DJ Moore. No. Brian Thomas is going to be on a decline. Jackson Smith and Jigba is a spot start at best. Zay Flowers you should probably play, but he's a PPR guy. He's going to have 7 catches for 80 yards and maybe a touchdown. So who knows? But that's a PPR guy right there. And then I haven't seen that connection with Caleb. You're not going to see anything from Caleb that you can consistently bank on this season. Caleb Williams right now hope he just yells at Shane Waldron a couple times and tells him to shut the fuck up, and then starts giving one of the best things.
Just keep changing plays at the line. That's what he's doing.
That's exactly what I was going with, Brandon. I think one of the best things that Richie said at the beginning, it's a problem that they gave a rookie so much command. I think without it, it'd look even worse. Because I think he's already smarter than Shane Waldron.
He's really intelligent, man. He can read coverage. He can read pressure. He's a guy who should be given that right for sure.
And he's probably calling better plays. In that 4th and 1 situation.
He knows that playbook front to back, and it's all in his head. That's the kind of guy Caleb is when it coms to the books. He studies hard.
He's psychotic, man. Stardoms. Fuck. We've talked about half these players. Stardoms, let's go. Maybe 1 or 2 each. I'm going to give you one right away. Looking at the matchups. Brandon, I'm going to do this just out of fun. Marvin Harrison Jr. against the Washington Commanders, just out of hilariousness of keeping us fucking consistent on the Marvin Harrison Jr. going up and down. The Washington Commanders are a very, very mediocre secondary. Their defensive line is nowhere near as good as it used to be. Their defensive line, they're not getting the pressure up front. They just had a shootout with the Cincinnati goddamn Bengals, and I hate to say I told you so, the Cincinnati goddamn Bengals are an absolute dumpster shithole fire.
They focus on the run too, man. Washington focuses on stopping the run.
They key in on that. Their matchup is probably going to be like Benjamin St-Juste. He's going to absolutely eat his lunch. Kyler's going to run all over that field. It's in Arizona. Marvin's going to go the fuck off. That's my stardom for this week. Just
Marvin
because that
Harrison
was
should be started every week moving forward.
I know. I had to say it just because it was funny. Here's my actual stardom. Cole Kmet. I think what you saw, and if you have tight ends, Cole Kmet's my backup tight end in 2 separate leagues. He was undrafted in one of them. He was a late round pick by a Bears homer by me. Cole Kmet should be a starting tight end now moving forward in any 12-man league. I think after this game, he basically proved that there is not 12 tight ends better than him week to week. I think even in terms of connection, I think this was kind of that key game. There was times when I saw a 3rd and 7, 3rd and 6, and I just said, Cole's getting that goddamn ball right here. And I think that instant connection really quick is going to start kicking in even harder. More than any player on the Bears, I think you can consistently in a PPR league count on Cole Kmet for Caleb Williams this season, remaining season. I think Rome Odunze is going to be up and down. I think DJ Moore, depending on the coverage, is going to be up and down. Keenan Allen's not even playing right now. And the rest of the skill position players are irrelevant. DeAndre Swift, Gerald Everett, absolutely useless. Probably go pick up Roschon Johnson in your waiver wires if you can. Hot tip. Stash him because I think he's going to be the starter by week 6. Cole Kmet is an absolute stardom. Like you said, one of the worst secondaries in all of football with the LA Rams. Their middle linebacking core is slow as molasses. That's going to be your most of your matchups. And the defensive line gets absolutely no pressure. I think Cole Kmet's going to absolutely feast this week. And if you need some consistency, if you're Chicago, which for the love of God, get some consistent drives going. If you can't do it in the running game, get 3rd and 6, get 3rd and 2, get 3rd and 4. Use your tight end and abuse him. He's there for a reason. He got 87% target share last week over Gerald Everett. It's about time. Bully Shane Waldron online, people. It works. Brandon or Richie, anybody? Yeah, everybody go bully Shane Waldron.
For stardoms, I have Nico Collins versus Jacksonville because he's a beast. Diggs draws targets and Diggs draws attention, and just Nico Collins is going to run wild on Jacksonville, I think. Yep. Rashee Rice, I think it's Rashee Rice season. I think you can start playing him reliably in your wide receiver 1 slot. Godwin, Godwin against Philly. You know which Godwin I'm talking. Chris Godwin against Philly. Yeah. Philly's defense is, they're not ranked super high so far this season. Godwin's been producing all season, and that's what I want. Those are guys those 3 guys, maybe not so much Nico Collins or Shea Rice, but Godwin, he's usually maybe around like 10 or 15.
I agree with you, Rich, on all 3.
Yeah.
Collins is a for sure start.
I think those are great calls because those are all debatable stardoms, and they are absolutely, in my mind, pure stardoms. Rashee Rice looks fast and powerful as hell this year. Yeah. Chris Godwin getting tossed back into the slot and being used the right way that he used to be used in his first few years with Tom Brady as more of that complimentary guy kind of on matchup situations rather than going back on the outside and being dependent on is that 6'2" big guy. He's not. He's like 6'1". He's a quick, quick slot receiver, much more than an outside receiver. And the only thing I would maybe potentially say is I think Vic Fangio is starting to kind of feel out the personnel in Philly. And I think Jalen Carter is absolutely going to destroy Baker Mayfield this week. Might not be a great week for Chris Godwin. But then, Nico Collins, for the same reasons we said before, Stephon Diggs is basically a distraction. I think the Texans are due for a bounce back, and I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are absolutely – you're just going to see week after week guys just being like, can we go home yet?
Yep.
So I'm with you.
My 3 are guys that are probably on your bubble. I didn't want to go with, absolutes because I think Nico Collins is for sure start. I agree with you, Rich. I actually agree with all three. And I have Godwin, who's been on my bench on a really stacked team all year. And I keep thinking like Mike Evans is going to do it this week. And then I keep regretting not putting him in my lineup. He's getting like 18 points per week. And that would be my wide receiver 3. But I have George Pickens. I do like George Pickens against this Colts team. You just watched Rome Odunze with 100 yards, Cole come out with 100 yards, DJ Moore with 80 yards. A rookie quarterback just threw on this team for 362 yards. He did drop back 52 times, outrageous. But George Pickens for sure. A guy that I like this week, guys, is Rome Odunze. I do. DJ Moore is the guy who you want to focus on. That Rams secondary is terrible. So if they're leaving one of these guys with less attention, it's probably going to be Rome Odunze. I think he's going to shred you for sure. It seems like Caleb Williams has more of chemistry with Rome Odunze than anybody else on this football team right now. It seems like Caleb wants to throw the ball to Rome Odunze. They asked him, who do you want to catch your first touchdown? He said Rome Odunze. And the other guy I want to say, guys, a player that's probably on your waiver. I mean, or you probably just picked him up, but I don't think I think he's been a good football player since the day he was drafted. And I think it just took opportunity for him to show it. Jawan Jennings on the 49ers is a monster. The 10 catches, 175 yards and a touchdown is not a fluke. This guy's been a good player since he was in, I believe, Tennessee. Was it Texas or Tennessee where he played with Josh Dobbs? And he caught that monster touchdown to win the bowl game. But this guy's a player, man. He's a player. He's big. You saw that touchdown. He took the ball out of the corner's hands. I mean, he Randy Moss somebody on that play. And I don't see the more opportunity Jennings gets, the more production he'll provide. And I don't think anyone who added him on their team this week is going to be regretful. And I think a lot of people who added him probably thought when Debo's healthy, when Kittle's healthy, when McCaffrey's healthy, this is a guy who's not worth owning anymore. Do not drop Jawan Jennings from your football team. He's going to be an impact player on that Niners team.
That last opinion is my favorite, Brandon. I think Deebo Samuel looks incredibly tradable as a midseason approaches because I don't see him. I'd see Kyle Shanahan even
Well, I think
moving away from his like use of Deebo in that way. I don't see him running reverses and
Ayuk said no to all of these trades, so I think it was more Ayuk than the Niners. But think about like some of the trade returns that the Niners could have gotten for Ayuk and then just started Jawan Jennings. I really don't see, and I know the gunshot wound was to the chest, so it's going to be some time before we talk about him anyways, but I don't see Ricky Purcell getting like a heavy target share immediately on this team. I think Jawan Jennings, guys, is the guy moving forward. I think Jawan Jennings might be a better player than Brandon Ayuk.
I don't disagree at all. I never really liked Brandon Ayuk myself, period. And I think Deebo, I think when San Fran was going through all that, I think they should have just bit the bullet and instead of trying to get a first for Brandon Ayuk, just trade Deebo for a second, avoid that future contract negotiation. Just be like, hey, I know you want Brandon for a first, but would you take Deebo for a second? And I think most teams would have probably said yeah. And I think Washington would have said yeah. I think Pittsburgh would have said yeah. So I think that was kind of one of those.
When it comes to Pickens too, real quick, sorry, I don't want to cut you off, David, but like,
no, you're good.
There's nobody else on this team.
No,
I mean, Freiermuth is not a good tie. He looked like he was going to be good as a rookie. He's not the player I thought he was going to be. They're really hurting for pass catchers on that team. Justin Fields has found the ability to get George Pickens the ball. I think this is a game against this Colts offense that he exploits weaknesses. He's a big guy. He's going to win contested catches. Fields is going to throw those. We know that, guys. We watched that for 3 years.
And I think George Pickens is even I think he's getting bad luck at this point. I think he's due for an explosive game because he has had a few explosive games robbed from him with some offensive holding penalties, some defensive
it's been weird, penalties. Man. He's had a few touchdowns called back. Like you're right, David. It feels like they're like that close to like blowing the lid off that thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's due for 140 yards and a tutty. Like he's just due for that because he should have had it a few times already, and he's just not had it. At one point, sometime this week or this season, he's gonna have a game where the calls go his way instead of the opposite.
And the Steelers' offensive line, guys, is vastly better than the Bears' offensive line. The Colts didn't really apply too much pressure to Caleb Williams. Justin Fields is a player. If you don't get pressure on, he can throw the ball well downfield. Like he can throw a 50-yard pass on the dime. So Pickens is going to get a big play in this game for sure.
Yeah. I'm with you. But Brandon, you want to loop back and give us a sit-em if you have one? Or I know you were struggling to find some sit-ems this week, but if you got
No,
one even, you can loop back around you and then go back to Richie and I'll finish it up.
Yeah, I'll say quickly, guys. The Broncos are playing the Jets. That Jets defense looks the same as they did last year. They look like a defense that could win games without a good quarterback, without a good offense, and the offense got better. Don't start Javonte Williams. You probably took him in the second running back slot if you have him on your team. He's not going to move the ball on this Jets team. I think the Broncos are going to struggle on offense in general. I think Bo Nix probably gets picked off in this game, maybe twice. They're going to try. The Jets are going to do what every team should do against a rookie quarterback like Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels. Make them throw the ball, so they're going to focus on stopping Javonte Williams. My other sit-em guys is very broad. If you have any pass catchers on the Dolphins offense, I mean, if it ain't Tua,
Trade him, sit him.
Tyreek Hill is on my team, and I'm strongly considering not having him in my lineup because it doesn't look like Mike McDaniel's going to do anything fancy to get him the ball. He's going to play in the same system, just without the same quarterback. It's not looking. It looks very grim, guys, for the Jalen Waddles and Tyreek Hill owners in fantasy right now. I have no faith that's going to improve. Even his bio says Tyreek Hill is probably a prayer at best in this week coming up. So I don't love any Dolphins. I really don't. I know the ability Tyreek has, guys. I'm not an idiot. He's on my team. I understand how good he is. It does make a difference when a player just can't get the ball.
That Dolphins situation is honestly like a whole separate conversation. That'd be so fascinating. Like if Tua retires and Tyreek's like $80 million against the cap, like why wouldn't you just blow it up? And I predict like a Tyreek to fucking Baltimore move or something like that. But yeah, that's a whole separate conversation. Richie, you got any good sit-ems before we wrap it up?
Yeah, man. One question. Do you guys know who Emmanuel Wilson is?
The receiver,
No.
right?
No, he's the backup running back on Green Bay. He got 12 carries last week and more receptions than Josh Jacobs. He leached 12 carries off of Josh Jacobs. I'm sitting Josh. I don't think you can count on Josh Jacobs for more than 12 points this week. That's just what I'm saying. Yeah, they've been able to win without him. The reason they have Emmanuel Wilson in for more snaps is because they kind of have him as their pass catcher, and they're trying to do things with him. I didn't see the split between how many snaps that are between Jacobs and Emmanuel Wilson, but they're against Minnesota too. I just don't feel good about Jacobs this week. I wouldn't count on Jacobs for more than 12 points this week. So.
Sounds good. One more quick comment. Fletcher Cox watches our show. How fucking cool is that? Trade Kamara for B-Rob and CMC. B-Rob. Brian Robinson? Trade Kamara. No. Even back end, I don't see CMC kind of carrying you through the playoffs. Man, depending on how San Francisco ends up this year, and again, I'm hoping for their downfall for my own selfish reasons and the Kyle Shanahan possibility, but even then it's a wild thing. Kamara in a playoff hunt in the NFC South is going to just see much more consistent playing time week 15, week 16, week 17. San Francisco is in a division against LA, who's probably wrapped it up unless they get healthy really, really quickly. Arizona is probably going to be they're going to be competing, but I don't think San Francisco is in any hurry to rush CMC back. And even if they are, I think one way or the other, I don't think you're looking at a divisional battle down the line like you are for the NFC South. And Brian Robinson is probably going to turn into the main carrier in Washington. Austin Eckler is already old. He's already getting hurt. Brian Robinson's big. He's going to be carrying the ball a lot for Jaden Daniels. I don't know, man. CMC just scares the shit out of me this year, period.
I like this trade. I do. I think Fletcher's implying he's trading away Kamara for Brian Robinson and CMC. I like Brian Robinson, and I like CMC coming in at the end of this. I mean, whenever he gets healthy, guys, I'll say this, Fletcher, if you have a few wins already, let's say you're sitting somewhere near the top of your league, if you are, I don't know why you'd be trading, but let's say you are, and you can afford to wait for Christian McCaffrey. I do think that Kamara's production is going to be a little similar, a little closer to what he did this last weekend than what he did the week before. I don't think
I
it's gonna
stand
be-
corrected, and I agree with you, Brandon. If it's Kamara for B-Rob and CMC, I agree.
And then he asked,
I'm
"What
with
about
you.
Kamara
Fletcher
for
Cox,
Gibbs?"
that's awesome, dude. That's awesome.
Imagine if it was really Fletcher Cox. What about Kamara for Gibbs? Kamara's better than Gibbs.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think Kamara beats Gibbs by a little bit. So
Yeah, and then he's 2-1. So I think Brandon's initial point is probably the best way to summarize that. You could probably buy yourself a little bit of time with Brian Robinson and then wait for CMC to come back long
Well,
term.
and I love Gibbs, man. And I would say I would make a case because of his youth that Gibbs is a better player than Kamara at the age Kamara is. My only concern for Gibbs is it doesn't even last year. It felt like the Lions don't know how to use this guy. It's my
Mhm.
biggest concern with it. He's an incredibly talented player, man, and I guess I get Dan Campbell's approach. Like he's a rookie, we'll slowly kind of ease him into this offense. But then his second year, I expected this guy to explode, and David Montgomery's gotten more time on the field. And like Gibbs is a guy that should be on your field. That I was talking about those Jaden Reeds. It should be a guy that you're drawing up offensive plays for specifically, and I'm not seeing that happen.
Let's clarify this for Fletcher because he seems like he was a little confused by how he approached it. Kamara for Gibbs is a straight up no. Do not do that. I personally wouldn't do that. I vote no, Richie.
correct.
Yeah, I
no,
don't like that. I love Gibbs. I love Gibbs Fletcher. I don't like the handcuff. It seems like Montgomery's going to get the bulk of the work for
Okay.
this season.
Going back to this, if you have Kamara and you are
Yeah, he
offered
does.
Brian
He's got
Robinson
Kamara.
and CMC
Make
and
that
you're
trade.
2-1, if you're okay with kind of limping your way at the running back position till like week 8 and if you're thinking you're pretty confident you're making the playoffs, CMC is going to be much more useful to you towards the end of the season than at the beginning. And Brian Robinson right now is definitely going to help you kind of fill that hole that Kamara left. Brian Robinson's good. Yeah, I'd make that trade. Kamara for Brian Robinson and CMC, you're getting 2 legitimate starters and probably the best running back in all of football for the end of your playoff push. You know, 1 and 2. Would you do this? I receive Tyreek and Josh Jacobs, and I give up DK, Brian Thomas Jr., and Devin Singletary. No, absolutely not. You're doing
I
it
like
for the
DK.
name recognition.
I would have said
You're doing it purely on name recognition.
I would have said
DK's
yes
better.
to you. I would have said yes to you a week ago, before
Yeah.
Tua got his head knocked off for sure.
Yep. Tyreek, no. Tyreek is you have DK in a much better and much healthier situation than Tyreek. Brian Thomas Jr. and Devin Singletary either week could have a better week than Josh Jacobs if we're
I
following
think-
Richie's
I
argument.
think Brian Thomas is going to eventually be an impact
Me
player
too.
in fantasy this year. I really do.
And-
He's the rookie receiver that I liked most, other than the 3 guys we all talk about: Neighbors, Harrison, Adunze.
Yeah.
I like Brian.
He's going to be the
Thomas.
number 1 option on a shitty team. That's not a bad thing to be. And Devin
Yep.
Singletary could have week to week could have as good of a week as Josh Jacobs as anybody, if we're being honest. The Giants
and-
suck, but they've got to give the ball to somebody.
And just to be clear, I think Josh Jacobs can rebound after this week. I just really don't like him this week. I especially like him when Jordan Love comes back, like the offense kind of resets to what it's supposed to be. The thing about this trade is DK Metcalf. I like him. I like just holding on to him. He's going to produce for you right now. He's going to produce for you in the future. And I would
He's a
just want to keep
monster.
him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The guys basically consider this a Josh Jacobs for DK trade, really, and you would say no to that most of the time. Because then if you're trading Tyreek for Brian Thomas Jr. and Singletary, I could say Brian Thomas will probably end the season better off than Tyreek in terms of just pure fantasy. And then Devin Singletary will definitely give you some spot starts at RB2 and then your flex.
Well, if the quarterback remains to not be Tua, there's no surprise. Like, it doesn't surprise me that people are trying to sell high on Tyreek Hill right now.
Yeah, and then to add to that, he already has Javonte Williams, Breece Hall, and Braylon Allen. Yeah, you don't need another starter number 1 like Josh Jacobs, because then you're just starting Breece Hall and Josh Jacobs, and then you're going to have these bodies just clogging up your bench that you're probably not going to start. You're going to have a better wide receiver room, because then you're going to be debating on who to start there, and then Tyreek's not going to really outperform for you. So yeah, anybody else has questions before we wrap up? I have 2 sit-ems. for the week, and I think we're running a little long on time more than usual. And appreciate so much feedback and commenting today. It's great. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
Love
thanks,
it.
guys.
Much appreciated for anybody watching and commenting and asking questions. I love it. My sit-ems this week might be a little bit surprising. Ironically, I did put Brian Thomas Jr. as a sit-em. I think Jacksonville is an absolute dumpster fire, and if he's the number one matchup against the Texans secondary, I think they have an elite secondary. I think they have a shit offensive line, and I think the Texans are going to absolutely mollywop the Jacksonville Jaguars this weekend.
Yep.
They're going to sack the shit out of Trevor Lawrence. He's going to be running for his life. The number one option, they're too deep at elite cornerbacks, and if you're talking about they're already injured with Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas being the number one, they're locked up on each outside. Evan Ingram is still on the bubble to return, which even limits them further because Evan Ingram really opens up their offense for them. And I don't see Travis Etienne making a difference in Houston to start him. Brian Thomas was a fun story for first 3 weeks. Now it's a sit and wait and watch for matchups kind of player. He's probably going to end up really, really good at the end of the season total. But this is not a good week for him at all. And if he proves us wrong, it is what it is. But I don't see the matchup making any sense at all. My second sit-em, this might be a little bit surprising. Jonathan Taylor, man. He hasn't had an impressive early start to his season, period. After watching him against Chicago had a good game plan, I guess, against them. I don't consider their defensive line is good. I don't consider them elite. They do shut down the run pretty well. Pittsburgh's the number 3 defense in terms of rushing the ball, and they're the number 5 defense in terms of passing the ball. Anthony Richardson is going to kind of just have to do this. I literally picture this game in my head already as just this crazy Spider-Man meme, Anthony Richardson versus Justin Field making plays thing. I don't see either of the rest of their offense working for either team. And it's going to be like a 175 versus 175, 75 yards rushing, 75 yards rushing. Jonathan Taylor, I think he's going to get keyed in. He's going to get shut down. And this is the first week that the Justin Fields story might kind of be forced to, I don't know. He might have to be forced to throw. Anthony Richardson might be forced to throw. And if Pittsburgh's up early, they're going to run the ball control, force Anthony Richardson to throw, which I see happening much more than anything else. Pittsburgh's going to get the ball back, play good defense, get a 10-point lead in the first quarter. Anthony Richards is going to be forced to play. He's going to make more and more mistakes, leading to easier turnovers, run the ball control. Jonathan Taylor's going to get 12 to 14 carries against the number 1 defense or the number 3 defense against the run. He should be a stardom every single week. This week, if you have to, you should start him at your flex or sit him completely if you have better options at receiver. If you have 2 decent running backs and play a matchup, I would have your number 1 bell cow back at your number 1 position, your flex guy at your number 2, probably sit Jonathan Taylor if you have better options. If he was on my team, I'd probably sit him this week. I wouldn't have any faith in Jonathan Taylor getting me more than 9 points. So that's my sit him. It's a little bit, I didn't want to make it an easy one, on the fence sit him. It's easy.
It's bold, man. It's bold.
I think how do you have more than 9 points against this Pittsburgh defense? It's going to be hard for him.
I'm waiting for the day that Shane Steichen figures out Anthony Richardson's at his best if you just check down the damn ball a whole lot. John Taylor 2 years ago was the best receiving running back in football. They need to get that working again, dude.
Also, this game could go either way because either one of these quarterbacks, depending on the game script, whoever has to play catch up, that team's in pretty hot water. So whoever's down early, I don't think either team has the quarterback to kind of drop in the pocket and throw 30 times. So whoever gets the early hot start, I think that's the team that's going to do really, really well. And then just 2 quick questions before we all log off. We also got an offer of Brandon Ayuk and Brian Robinson, and to give Drake London. If you're giving up Drake London for those 2, do that instantly, immediately.
Yep.
Yeah.
Go get Brandon Ayuk.
He's asking because Drake London had a pretty good last 2 weeks, but I agree. You want to keep on to Ayuk.
Sell high. Drake London selling high is the equivalent of people asking us about Garrett Wilson selling low.
When you're getting
high on Drake London.
You're getting 2 quality players for 1 quality player as far as I'm concerned. I don't dislike any of the guys here. I don't dislike Ayuk. I don't dislike Robinson. I don't dislike London. I do, however, like 2 players for 1.
Yeah, and I don't unless you're convinced Drake London with Kirk Cousins is the new like match made in heaven type of thing. I don't
Darnell
trust
Mooney looks like
anybody.
he's going to catch some balls.
Exactly. I don't trust Drake London to be this consistent every week. And trade Carr, Terry McLaurin,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and Jordan Mason for Amon-Ra.
Yeah.
Nah,
I would.
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that.
Mason's your biggest. I don't see Jaden Daniels doesn't look like he's going to spread the ball a whole lot, man. I mean, I like McLaurin. You're going to get up and down weeks with Terry McLaurin. Derek Carr to me is irrelevant. And Jordan Mason is a really good player until he's not, guys.
Yeah.
Opportunities.
Yeah.
I like Mason in this trade. It's Mason that's really close to him. Like Amon's here and Mason's here, and then you throw in Terry. I just like Terry. I like those two a little bit more, you know. So
why are you trading?
Who's
trading 3 players for like this? Interesting.
Well, you know what that is? It's a 2-player trade because Derek Carr ends up on most people's waiver wire by week 6.
Yeah.
So really, what you're doing is trading Terry and Mason for Amon-Ra, and Mason's another free agency waiver wire pickup. You know, this is the same thing we just talked about in terms of like picking up. Like this is what I was saying. You know, man, like CMC and a running team, you pick up the backup, and now Mason is all of a sudden trade bait to everybody. This is why people are asking us about these trades and stuff. I'm like, just go pick up like the second running back on a good team. Go pick up, like you said, Davis on Buffalo.
Derek Carr got like 12 points in fantasy. Go get
Amon-Ra.
That's not going to be the last bad week Derek Carr has.
Yeah, dude, go get Amon-Ra. And who are you saying it is? Brandon on Buffalo, the backup.
Mike Davis.
You get Mike Davis as a backup running back from Buffalo, and go get Amon-Ra.
I like what David said, man. David nailed it. Pick up Roschon Johnson. Looks like he's going to be a piece of this Bears team.
He's going to get 9 to 12 carries. Yeah. He's getting 9 to 12 carries next week anyway. So, and then start Stroud or Purdy.
Stroud versus Jacksonville.
Stroud. Yeah, that's
Stroud
like the third worst. It's like the third worst secondary in football. Yeah. Stroud's gonna have a field day.
Stroud. He's have a bounce back game too. I wouldn't doubt the Texans to come back and
Chandler. Keep your eyes on the injury report. I believe Purdy missed a practice.
He did. He's a little questionable. I would know that because he's on my team.
They're both good players. They're kind of neck and neck. But you have Stroud on a really good team with no injuries, and you have Purdy, who's also injured himself, on a team loaded with injuries. And then you have Stroud playing Jacksonville. Like, it's Stroud.
Yeah, but Rich, you said it best. Both these players are good starts this week, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. Stroud's the better guy, but I don't think you can do no wrong here. If Purdy's healthy and plays, they're going to torch that team for sure. So, like, I think you're good either way.
Who's Purdy against again?
What's that?
Who is Purdy against again?
The Niners are playing who I think is the worst team in football.
Patriots?
Patriots.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna not go that far, and Christian Gonzalez is a pretty good matchup as well as with a depleted receiving core.
I think
they're bad.
Goes off though, man.
Yeah, they're bad, but not. I think Las Vegas is gonna come back to be like, how the hell did they beat Baltimore? That's gonna be such a bad team this year. I
project New England to have the worst record at the end of this year. Either the Giants or New England for sure. Maybe the Panthers, but their division sucks. So
watch out for the Bears too. I'm not kidding, guys. I mean, minus a Will Levis miracle, you're looking at an 0-3 team.
I don't think they're going to be anywhere near the worst record in the league, though.
Just saying, Sean McVay is going to eat your lunch, and if Dave Canales is what we think Dave Canales is, might be 1-4 going into week 6. Should have been 0-5. Never know.
Yeah, it's gonna be heavily reliant on adjustments, and if Caleb's the guy we project him to be, quarterback is king. Those guys can be scheme proof sometimes, man. If Caleb goes out there and balls, they're gonna win some football game.
I'm with you. Boys, we're running a little longer than we usually do, and it's on a week that I thought we would have less content than usual. So I appreciate everybody watching, keeping us engaged with good questions, and kind of keeping up, talking about some random stuff that we probably didn't plan to talk about. 25 minutes of this was a Bears purging of grieving of airing of grievances, as Frank Costanza would say. And
Nice.
yeah, thank you very much. We'll be seeing you guys next week, hopefully, if everybody has the time to join in. We'll be reviewing our stupidity, and anytime we said I told you so. So thank you for watching. Check
Thanks,
you guys
guys.
later. Okay?
Thanks
Take care,
everybody in
guys.
the chat.